So I've studied in all three places. I did my bachelor's at Christ University in Bangalore. I'm doing a master's at ESSEC Business School in France. And right now I'm on exchange at Cornell University in the US. So I've experienced life in all of these places. And by studying in these countries, I've noticed a few similarities, but a lot of differences. From academics to social life to cost of living to food to weather, almost everything is different. And not just between India and these two places, but also between US and Europe. There are big differences. So if you're planning on studying abroad or you just want to know the differences between these places, this is the perfect video for you. If this is the first time you're seeing me, I'm Fazil. I help people make the right decisions about their career. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. It'll be a win-win for the both of us. Starting off with academics. Honestly, I can make a whole separate video about this, but I'll keep it as short as possible. India's education system is broken. I'm extremely sorry to say this. I'm Indian. I love India. India is my country. But India's education system is broken. It is what it is. Hardly anyone I know, and it doesn't matter what degree they've done, hardly anyone I know has learned anything in their degree. It's very, very theory based. And I get it, some degrees have to be theory based. But even degrees like a BBA, for example, which are supposed to be practice based, even they have too much theory. And honestly, it doesn't even matter which university you're in. I went to Christ University, which is considered one of the best BBA colleges in India. And it was the same. The teaching quality as well is not the best. Sometimes you even wonder how these teachers got hired in the first place. Also in India, teachers are dictators. They can decide everything. They can decide if you pass, if you fail, if you get good grades, bad grades, if you stay in the university, if you're kicked out of the university. They have too much power, and it shows in their behavior. A lot of teachers abuse their power, and we see it every single day. They don't like being questioned. They don't like being proven wrong. Also, there are 80, 100 students in a class. You don't get that personalized attention. Everyone chills throughout the year, has a good time. Before the exam, you spend a few nights preparing. You learn everything which was taught throughout the year, and you pass. That's pretty much how it works. But think about it. How much of what you learned will you actually remember? Now, talking about Europe, there are still classes with a lot of students, sometimes even over 100 students. And yes, a lot of it is theory based, but you're also forced to do assignments outside of class. You're expected to do a lot of self-study. You have presentations, group work, and these are due almost every week, and these are compulsory. You get graded on the basis of these assignments. If you do them well, you get a good grade. If you don't do them well, you don't pass. Now, because these are compulsory and because these are graded, everyone does it well. Everyone puts in the effort. And because you're putting in so much effort, you learn. That's it. They trick you into learning, but in the end, you learn. In the US, it's on a whole different level. In my university, for example, at Cornell, there are no lectures. Everything is based on discussions. Professors hardly give lectures. Professors hardly present. They hardly even talk sometimes. And there's no class which is 2 hours, 3 hours long. Every class is 50 minutes to an hour max. And the way you get graded for your classes is by your class participation. And it's not just about the quantity of your participation. You can't just speak a lot and expect to get good marks. It's about the quality of what you say. If you make some very interesting statements, you ask interesting questions, you'll get a good grade. And because you are graded on the basis of this, you stay attentive throughout the class. You're focused on what is happening and you learn. Again, they trick you into learning, but in the end, you learn. It's extremely practical. There's group work almost every day. And in my opinion, this is the best way to learn anything. Now, talking about the cost of living. India obviously is the most affordable. There is no question about it. I personally used to live with my parents when I went to college, and I used to get 5,000 rupees a month. And it might seem like a very small amount, but it used to be okay. And this 5,000 included petrol for my scooter. So 2,000 used to go towards petrol, and I would do everything else with 3,000 rupees. If you have to pay rent, then obviously it'll be more expensive. But I mean, it's up to you. I've seen people live with 5,000, 10,000, 20, 30, even 1 lakh rupees. So it all depends on your lifestyle. but you're able to live for very less money as well. So right now I live in a town called Ithaca, which is a very small town in the middle of nowhere. The closest city is New York City, which is 4 hours away, and the rent I pay here is $675 for a very average place. I live with 2 flatmates. We have one common kitchen, one common bathroom, and that's it. On groceries I spend around $200 to $250 a month. I don't eat out, I hardly go out, and transport as well is free for Cornell students in the city, so I don't spend anything else on transport as well. So I'm able to live within $1,000 per month, and that's pretty much how much I spend in Paris as well. But there's a big problem here. I'm comparing Ithaca, which is a town in the middle of nowhere, to Paris, which is one of the biggest cities in the world and probably the biggest in Europe. If I had to compare Paris with New York, which would be a better comparison, then it would be a big difference. Some people I know in New York spend $2,500, $3,000 just on rent. So it really depends where you study in the US. It could be super expensive or not that expensive as well. Another big expense which I didn't count in my monthly expenses is health insurance. I'm here on exchange for 5 months and I'm spending $2,000 on health insurance for these 5 months. This is madness, and it makes me so angry to spend $2,000, almost 2 lakh rupees of my hard-earned money on health insurance. The best thing about Europe is that they make the cost of living for students very affordable. Healthcare is free. The French government also gives me a reimbursement on my rent, which makes my cost of living very affordable. So even though my rent is around 500 euros, I get 200 euros back from the government, which effectively makes my rent 300 euros a month. That's pretty much what I would be paying if I lived in Mumbai as well. My transport is subsidized. I pay 360 euros on unlimited public transport throughout the Paris region for the entire year. So that's literally €1 a day for unlimited public transport. They specifically implement these laws and these changes to make your life as a student so much more affordable and convenient. So yes, Europe will be a lot more affordable than the US, but it also depends where in the US you would live and where in Europe you would live. Now coming to jobs, there are 2 kinds of jobs: part-time jobs and full-time jobs. And let me tell you one thing, we as Indians, especially if you're middle class or higher middle class, we're the most useless and most privileged kids in the world. And that includes me as well. Just think about it. When was the last time you or someone you know did a part-time job? I don't know, worked in a McDonald's, worked in a restaurant, did delivery. It's very, very rare. And if you do it, people look down upon you. Iski औकात देखो, ये तो KFC में काम करता है. It's very different abroad. Students work everywhere. Most jobs you see in restaurants, in malls, in grocery stores, they're done by students. So the part-time job culture is massive. In Europe, you're allowed to work 20 hours a week in most countries, and it's the same in the US. But in the US, you're only allowed to do on-campus jobs. So you can't apply anywhere and work anywhere. It has to be on campus. The best thing would be if you work as a research assistant or a teaching assistant in the course which you are studying. That would be the best case scenario. But campuses in the US are massive. You have restaurants, you have malls, you have movie theaters within the campus. So you can find a job. Now coming to full-time jobs, I used to think USA would be the best, France would be second, and India would be the worst, right? But after moving abroad, I've realized it's the other way around. Again, this is my opinion and it's on the basis of what I've seen around me. Most people I know in France, most Indians I know in France, especially the people around me, if you're looking for an internship, if you're looking for an apprenticeship or even a full-time job, if you put in the effort, you'll get it. Yes, it will be hard sometimes. Yes, you could face a lot of rejection, but in the end, if you stick with it, you get one. But in the US, I've had conversations with people looking for jobs, looking for internships, other Indians who are looking for internships, and it's looking quite difficult. Everyone here is super stressed about finding an internship, finding a full-time job. The main difference is that in France, after you graduate, you get 1 year of a job searching visa. And if you're Indian, you can extend this for another year. So technically you get 2 years to look for a job. But in the US, there is something called OPT, Optional Practical Training. With the OPT, you get 1 year after graduation. And if you're in the STEM fields, you can extend this for 2 more years. So technically you get 3 whole years. Sounds good, right? Not really. You only get this OPT if you find a job within 3 months after graduation. So technically you only get 3 months. If you don't find a job within this time, Tata, pack up, back to India. And especially if you've taken loans of over 1 crore rupees, which is very common if you're coming to the US. If you've taken these loans, it's extremely stressful. The US is not what it was 20-30 years ago when everyone was getting jobs. Now you never know what Donald Trump and Elon Musk do, but at least now this is the situation. In India, I think it's the easiest. Yes, there is competition, but the opportunities are there. If you're a skilled person, if you're good at what you do, you will get a job. There's no visa requirement, there's no OPT, GPT. Where the US was 20-30 years ago, I think India is there today and will be there for the next 10-20 years. So in terms of job availability, I would say India is the best. Yes, in terms of work culture and other things, it might not be as good, but just in terms of availability of jobs, I think it's the best. Now coming to the fees, because I'm on exchange, it's completely free for me. But one day I was just feeling bored and I checked what the fees for a full-time Cornell MBA program is. It's $83,000. And I was like, yeah, that's expensive. 80 lakh rupees is expensive, but I expected a lot more. But then I realized this is fees for only 1 year. So if you do a full-time 2-year MBA program, this is over 1 crore 60 lakhs just on fees. Now, if you also include living expenses, this would be over $220,000, which is more than 2 crore rupees. Imagine you do this, imagine you take a loan of over 2 crore rupees and you don't find a job within 3 months. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Now yeah, most degrees you do might not be 2 crore rupees, but you can easily spend 80-90 lakhs, 1 crore rupees on a degree. That's very common in the US. In Europe, it's very different. 2 to 3 year master's programs in the best universities of France are less than 50 lakh rupees. And these programs in Europe are considered to be super expensive. There are universities you can apply to, really good universities as well, which are less than 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs. Some are absolutely free as well. So I would say Europe is definitely a lot more affordable in terms of fees. Now coming to India, India has different kinds of universities. Some are super affordable, some are super expensive, but you already know it all, so I don't want to get too into it in this video. Moving on to lifestyle. A lot of people who come abroad, both to Europe and the US, and honestly any country, say that, bro, India mein I had a maid, I had a driver, I had a cook. Everything was done for me. My dishes used to be washed, my clothes used to be fresh every single day. And here I have to do everything on my own. I have to wash my clothes, I have to cook food. Bro, it's too much. You're 22, 23, 25 years old and you can't cook your food, you can't fold your clothes, you can't wash your clothes. Guys, I don't understand this and I cannot ever understand this. I get it, it could be a problem, but I'm not using this reason to say that India is better in terms of lifestyle. I'm saying India is better because of the people, because of the food, because of the culture, and because of the accessibility. If you grew up in India, just make sure you understand that there is no other country like India. If you want to have fun, India is the best. Europe is amazing as well. The public transport system, you don't need to have a car. The fact that you can take a flight for 30 euros return and go to a new country just for the weekend. The fact that you can walk everywhere, you can cycle everywhere. The fact that it's not too expensive to eat out. You can go out and spend less money as well. All of this is amazing. Now, if I have to find a problem, and I agree, it could be a big problem, is the language barrier. If you want to experience life fully in Europe and do all of these things, you will need to know the language. You cannot have amazing experiences if you don't speak the local language. It is what it is, it's a fact, and it's something you have to deal with. And that's another reason why India is number one. Even if you don't speak the local language of the city you're in, of the state you're in, you still find people to communicate with, and you just find a way and it works. America is okay, but it's highly dependent on the place you're living in. If you're in New York, if you're in big cities, it's great, but it's very expensive. And to do most things, at least outside the big cities, you will need a car, even to go to the grocery store. Last week, I had to go to Aldi, a grocery store here in Ithaca. When I opened Google Maps, I saw that by driving, it takes 10 minutes, and by bus it takes 45 minutes. I don't have a car, so I took 2 buses and got there. And after shopping with my big bags, I opened Google Maps again and there was nothing. There was no public transport to get back home. There were no cabs as well. So I had to walk back for an hour holding massive bags. So yeah, if you live in small towns, you will need a car. Also, most universities here are in university towns. So there's not much else to do apart from what is happening in the university. So it could be good, but personally, I don't prefer it. Also, the fact that traveling is so expensive. Going out to eat is so expensive. If you do go out to eat, you have to spend 20% more on a tip. Don't even get me started on that. For all of these reasons, the US is not my favorite, at least in terms of lifestyle. If you think I've missed anything, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. If you want to know the top 3 countries to study abroad in 2025, make sure you watch this video and make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll keep helping you make the right decisions about your career, and it'll be a win-win for the both of us.